So I know this is a clickbaity title, but I request that you hear me out because I think this is actually a pretty interesting thing. You're going to see some command blocks. Don't freak out. I'm going to go into all of that and I'm going to explain why everything is the way it is. I ask that you don't assume this is something uninteresting because it's actually pretty new. Um, so here it is. This is the machine, um, and it's pretty small, and it's relatively simple compared to what you might be thinking for what I'm claiming is somehow the most powerful computer in Minecraft. So, um, what makes this necessary? So, in a people have made computers in Minecraft before. Everyone knows that, but all of those computers have a problem, and that's memory. Um, a computer isn't like all powerful, all capable, Turing complete if it doesn't have an unlimited amount of memory. This computer here has an unlimited amount of memory, and that's what makes it completely unique. Now you'll see some command blocks. I should talk about those. Um, those are almost entirely for debugging. So if we look, for example, here, all it's doing is setting values in the scoreboard, which I use to debug the state of the machine over here. That being said, there are a few command blocks that are actually fundamental to the working of the machine, but they aren't necessary. So what I mean by that, we have these, which will summon and kill villagers. And the villagers make up the memory cells. So the number of villagers in a memory cell is the value of that memory cell. So we can that feels like cheating using command blocks, but we can spawn villagers using villager breeders. So in theory, if you want to, you can make this with a villager breeder hooked up to it as an input. And that would work. You just need to slow down the clock a lot because you have to wait for a villager to spawn every time you want to add a number in memory. But there are ways to do that. I didn't want to do that now because I wanted to focus on the simple version, making sure everything's working, with the knowledge that if we want to make this in survival, we could really, in theory, do that by getting rid of all the debugging features with the scoreboard command blocks, and the summon villagers and kill villagers by using a villager breeder and using minecarts to transport them around. So that's kind of my justification here. Now, this computer is not fast by any stretch of the imagination. Even for a Minecraft computer, it is quite slow. But if this were running on a perfect machine, you overclock it and you set the tick speed as high as it can, you need, of course, unlimited RAM in your computer that the Minecraft instance is running on, because you need to be able to store arbitrary numbers of villagers, which represent the memory values. But if you were able to do that, then this object here would be capable of arbitrary computation. Whatever calculation you want to do, no matter how big the numbers are, you can do it. So I should show you how it works. First off, on this side, we have some registers. So I can summon, wrong button. I can summon villagers and I can kill them. And you'll notice on my scoreboard I have the values debugging. I just kind of messed it up by decrementing when there wasn't one to decrement from. The first digit is just to make these sorted in order, because you can't sort values in a scoreboard. But you can see if I add a couple villagers, now our 0 has a value of 2. And we have vines here which keep the villagers from entity cramming. So this really is unlimited. And what I can do here, that's the wrong key. I have Tweakaroo installed, and I can just spam this button for a while. Now you can see we have, for example, 83 entities in there, well over the limit for what should be entity cramming, but because of the vines, everything is fine. If I remove the vines, yeah, sorry about that noise. Let's go ahead and kill those off. All right, so there we go. I'm going to turn off the fast right click and reset. Okay, and I'm going to reset the scoreboard. So we have 8 of those memory addresses, 8 registers, which can store any number that is any integer, any positive integer in them. And we have some pressure plates to detect when a villager is in there. So these control the flow of the instructions through the machine. And then over here, this is kind of the CPU portion, the instruction decoding. So this is a specific register machine called U32, which comes from this paper from, I think, the 90s about universal register machines. And the idea behind these is we input into the memory a number which represents what function we want to call. And so there's a mapping between functions and numbers. And it's a complicated mapping, but you can find out like, oh, I want to compute x to the third power, then this number, like 5,336, computes that. I'm making these numbers up, of course, but that's the idea. So you input a function as one of your memory cells. Then on the other one, on the next register, you input your input. So that's like if we're computing x cubed, say I input 5, and it will compute 5 cubed. And then the next register is the output. So if I put those values in and press this lever to turn on the clock, it would compute that function on this input and put the output here. And these registers over here are just used basically as scratch pad space, some extra space to work with, and that's how it works. So I wanted to do a quick interjection. As I was editing this, I realized I forgot some things I wanted to say. So this is the same machine, U32, that was used to prove that Mario and Baba's U are RE-complete or turing-complete. I was part of the Mario efforts, so I just wanted to shout that out here. And I also wanted to say I'll have links to that paper, as well as the Baba's U and Mario papers in the description if you want to do more reading about this sort of thing. Over here, let's take a look at these. We have a bunch of instructions. So there are 32 instructions, and these look something like, here we have R1 that reads the value of register 1 and branches based on what the value is. Here's another instruction, R1im, which subtracts 1 from R1. Over here is one which adds 1 to R7, R7p. Here's one that checks R5 and branches, and so on. It's those 3 types of instruction: add, subtract, and branch. So if we have the easiest ones are the add and subtract instructions. What they do is when they're powered, they take this line here, turn on this line, which goes over here, and turns on this torch, turning on this line, which will spawn or kill a villager, depending on what it is. And like I said, if you really want to, you can hook this up to a villager breeder, use some mine carts to move the villagers around, and add that trigger instead. But I've used the command blocks for simplicity. Then the branching instructions, first I should say, once it completes one of those instructions, this dropper here gets triggered and the item goes up into here. So this is a simple RS NOR latch. Then the output, this comparator will have an output, and that basically tells it that it's ready to send the next instruction. And so what we do is when the clock fires, which happens from this clock here, the pulse goes over here, and say it reaches, I can't remember if this was the one we were looking at, but one of these, it will send a pulse to this piston, which pushes this block down and allows the signal to travel through here, and then it will clear that register, so it will turn off that instruction. So what happens then? We enter a multiplexer. So this allows us to select two destinations, one of two destinations from our input. So if the piston is up, the redstone line travels down here, through here, and out over here. And if the redstone line, if the piston is down, then the redstone will connect to this block and power this piston, or this repeater, sorry. And this repeater here isn't connected to anything because this isn't a branching instruction. All of the instructions go to this case. But if we look at a branching instruction, like this one here, R5, then we have two separate lines which come out, and those go to two different instructions. So the first one goes right here to the next instruction, and the branch instruction goes out all the way over here and comes to this instruction. And what controls those branches is the state of the registers. So for example, for this one, we said was R5. If we go along here, follow this line, it goes back up and is powered by this torch, which is controlled by this pressure plate. So if I put a villager here, then that redstone line is powered, this torch is unpowered, and so now this piston is up and will be not branching. These are branch if 0. So that's kind of the idea behind how it all works. And it turns out that these 32 instructions are what we have, all really simple instructions. 32 instructions and 8 registers can compute arbitrary functions if you just input the right number. So I'm going to show it running a simple example. Now this isn't going to be a real machine that I'm simulating. The numbers that those take are really big, and if I wanted to actually run it, it would probably take like, I don't know, years. So what I'm going to do is enter kind of a fake state where we put some values in the scratchpad memory before we start, and then I'm going to show the machine running through that process. So I think I wrote down here, this is a good value to demonstrate because it's really short. So I put 1 here, and that was the wrong thing. Let me reset the scoreboard, because I decremented when there wasn't one in there. Add a villager here, here, and here, and 1 more here. So now we have 1 villager here, 2 here, 1 here. If we look at the scoreboard on the side, kind of hard to see, but it's 1, 2, 1 for those last 3. And the instruction number is 1, so we're on the first instruction. And now let's hit the clock. So now we're computing. And it's reached instruction 6, and it's incremented register 6. Now it's in instruction 4, which is compare instructions, and then the registers change, but now we got 5, and R5 went down by 1. R6 just went up, and we can see all this computation happening. And so I can tell you that the ultimate value will be, when this is finished, we should have values 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 2, 0 in all of the registers. And this is an input that terminates. Not every input terminates. If you give it a function that isn't a real input, or if it's some function that takes infinite time to compute, then you can have it run forever and never end. And so this shows that this is related to the halting problem for any of you who've studied that. Um, the problem of halting for this machine is undecidable because this machine is capable of arbitrary computation. It is as hard as the halting problem. So there's no algorithm to determine whether this machine will halt for an arbitrary input. See, it's running now. We're making some progress. I think I have a reference pulled up on my second screen. I think we're about 2/3 of the way there. Let's see. Next should be instruction 18, and then go 19, 20. Another term I'll throw out there is re-complete for any of you who've studied complexity theory. This is a proof here that Minecraft, even with a finite starting configuration, is an re-complete game. The problem of like, will this redstone lamp turn on, for example? And what that means is basically that it's as hard as the halting problem, like I just said, but more formally. People talk about turing-complete a lot, but not so much about re-complete. But there we go. We have reached instruction 0, which is the halt instruction, and the redstone lamp has turned on. And like I said, register 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 2, 0. So there we go. That is the machine. I guess I'll show also that the villagers do reflect the actual count. So if I look, I have entities displayed up in this corner. We see 2 here in register 7 or 6. That's 6. Here we have. It's kind of hard because the other ones are on screen, but if I get it right, you should see that there's 1. You can tell visually that there's 1, but it's hard to get the number to reflect that. 1 there, and 1 here. Well, we can see there are 2 between these, 3 between all of them, and so they're, yeah, 1 each. Anyway, that's the idea. The clock is still running because it doesn't know that it stopped, but I can turn it off. Yeah, that's the machine. I hope this was interesting. Like I said, it's not, by no means is this a practical computer. I mean, no Minecraft computer is a practical computer for sure, but even by Minecraft standards, this is a horribly impractical computer. But it works, and it is theoretically perfect. It is, if you are a theoretical computer scientist, then this computer here is the best you could possibly hope for. So that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed.